Welcome to 21st Sports. Football is back, and so are we here at 21st Sports. And we're talking the Oakland Raiders at the New Orleans Saints in their Week 1 matchup played September 11th, 2016, as these two teams played their first respective games of this season. Of course, the season opener was on Thursday, but here in this game, Week 1 Sunday, the Raiders and the Saints going at it in an exciting game. Plenty of offense. This was a shootout. A couple gunslingers, Derek Carr and Drew Brees going at it. And it all started off with a pair of field goals, one on each end. First, Sebastian Janikowski with a 47-yard field goal to put the Raiders up 3-0. Then Will Lutz hit a 42-yarder to tie it up at 3 apiece. Then with less than 2 minutes left in the first quarter, Latavius Murray gets it into the end zone, a 6-yard touchdown run, and it was 10-3 after 1 quarter of play with the Raiders in the lead. But then the Saints scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter to go into halftime up 17-10. First, Drew Brees hit Willie Snead for a 1-yard touchdown, and then Drew Brees hit Brandon Cooks for a 15-yard touchdown, so 17-10 at halftime. And then in the third quarter, about midway through, Drew Brees hit Brandon Cooks in stride, and he turned on the burners, and there was no stopping him as he went 98 yards for the touchdown. 21 unanswered points by the Saints going back to the second quarter as they were now up 24-10, and it looked like the Saints were in control, but the Raiders weren't done just yet. Sebastian Janikowski hit a 31-yard field goal to make it 24-13 after 3, and then in the fourth quarter, Jamiz Olawale punched it into the end zone, a 2-yard touchdown run. The Raiders went for 2, but the conversion failed, so it would be a 5-point game with the score 24-19 with about 12 minutes left. Will Lutz added a 20-yard field goal for the Saints to make it 27-19. And then the Raiders came right back with a 75-yard touchdown run by Jalen Richard. And they go for 2, and Derek Carr hits Amari Cooper, and it was a successful 2-point conversion, which tied this game up at 27 apiece. But then Drew Brees would lead the Saints down into the end zone in about 2.5 minutes, a little less than, as he hit Travis Tavares Cadet for a 2-yard touchdown, and it was now 34-27 with the Saints up by a touchdown. And the Raiders then had to get a touchdown to tie it and send it to the overtime. And with less than a minute left, Derek Carr hits Seth Roberts for the 10-yard touchdown. And an extra point would tie it and send it to overtime. But instead, the Raiders decide to go for 2. They had missed the 2-point conversion earlier in the fourth quarter. They had a successful conversion on their last trip to the end zone. Which would be the outcome here? It was success as Carr hits Crabtree. He was covered, but he held on to it, and the 2-point conversion put the Raiders up by 1 point, 35-34, as Oakland wins this game in exciting fashion as they had steel nerves, ice in their veins, and big brass cojones to go for 2 in that situation, but they did not want to give the Saints the ball in overtime with a chance to win it, as this game was just all offense, and so they wanted to just end this game with the opportunity to do so with the 2-point conversion, and that's what they did, as Oakland comes up big time on the road with the victory. So what a game it was. And what a performance by Jalen Richard, the rookie from Southern Miss, coming up big in this game for the Raiders, as he had 84 yards off of just 3 carries, including that 75-yard touchdown run, which along with the 2-point conversion tied it at 27 before they would go on to win it just moments later. But what a performance also by Derek Carr, 24 for 38, 319 passing yards and a touchdown. They said, though, it was that ground game that had 3 touchdowns. Richards, the rookie, as I just mentioned, and then, of course, Latavius Murray, 14 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown, and Olawale had a touchdown as well. So 3 touchdowns on the ground for Oakland, although this was more of a gunslinging, high-powered offensive explosion on both sides from both teams. But Amari Cooper, 6 catches for 137 yards. Michael Crabtree, 7 catches for 87 yards. Of course, Seth Roberts had the lone touchdown through the air on the reception end with 2 catches for 19 yards, including that touchdown. And for the Saints, Drew Brees, another big performance by Brees, as he always puts up the numbers. 28 for 42, 423 yards passing, and 4 touchdowns for Drew Brees. But it wouldn't be enough, as the Saints, they really need some balance on their team, as they're really, all their talent is on the offensive side, not so much on the defense. Of course, the Raiders can put up big numbers as they showed today. And on the ground, not much really. Of course, they didn't really give many carries to Ingram. He only had 12 carries. He did come away with 58 yards. He was productive when they put the ball in his hands, but they just weren't giving him the ball. He did have 2 receptions for 29 yards as well, which gave him 77 total yards in the game. Willie Snead had a big game for the Saints, so 9 catches for 172 yards for Willie Snead, including a touchdown. And Brandon Cooks, 6 catches for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, 98 of those yards coming on that 1 touchdown where he just gassed it. I mean, Breeze hit him in stride. He was wide open, and he was gone. But that wouldn't be enough, as the Raiders, Derek Carr, coming up clutch on those 2-point conversions down the stretch. What a performance by Derek Carr, for sure. And what a lot of offense. If you like offense, this surely was the game for you. We go ahead and we actually did have 1 sack, though. Bruce Irvin had a sack, the former Seahawk. He also forced a fumble. Lots of first downs, 27 for the Saints, 25 for the Raiders. Both teams struggling on third down, though. They were both 4 for 11, just 36% conversion rate on third downs for both of these teams. The Saints did convert a 4th down, though, 1 for 1. Total net yards, 507 net yards for the Saints, 486 for the Raiders. And on the ground, that was really the difference in this game, that ground game. Of course, it was just the offense all over the place on both sides. About 167 net yards on the ground for the Raiders, just 88 net yards for the Saints. And the Raiders averaging 6.4 yards per rushing play, just 4 yards averaged per rushing play for the Saints. Of course, 4 yards is pretty good, but 6.4 yards per rushing play for the Raiders, that's phenomenal. When we look at net passing yards, 419 for the Saints, 319 for the Raiders. And we look at the penalties, and the Raiders, the most penalized team in the history of football, they proved, hey, penalties don't even matter. As they were penalized 3 times as much nearly, with 14 penalties for 141 penalty yards, but it didn't even matter in the end, as they still won by 1. Of course, they hadn't been penalized by so much, maybe they wouldn't have had to rely on those 2-point conversions and that nail-biting finish. But there were 7 penalties for the Saints for 53 penalty yards. Of course, they had a couple of fumbles. They recovered one, they lost one. 1 fumble for the Raiders, but they recovered it themselves. When we look at the red zone efficiency, 3 for 4, 75% for the Raiders, and the Saints just 3 for 5, just 60%, as that would come back to cost them in this game. And the time of possession, very close, about as close as could be. 30 minutes, 25 seconds for the Raiders, 29 minutes, 35 seconds for the Saints. So it was quite the exciting game, all the way down to the wire. What a performance by Drew Brees, and what a performance by Derek Carr, coming up big time in this game with those 2-point conversions. Also, as I said, Jalen Richard coming up big, Cooper as well, Crabtree too, just all around great performances by the Raiders. The Saints too on offense came up with some big plays as well. Also, don't forget Murray for the Raiders, but Let me know what you think, though, in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Which plays and performances stuck out to you? Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.